Previously on Ignore This Podcast. Would you fight Sebastian?
No, I would feel bad for Sebastian.
Damn, who does this fool think he is, bro? Damn.
I wouldn't win.
How do you know that?
Oh my god, have you seen Sebastian?
There is no such thing as peace, Brian.
Brian, make me a sandwich, Brian.
Who's Brian?
Brian as a serial killer.
Brian, get back in the kitchen.
Buffalo Bill.
Oh my lord.
Sure, man, you're big, but guess what? I got more stamina than you.
You are this universe's version of Abomination.
He saw your ass.
Well, here's the thing.
So my mind thinks in weird capacities where I imagine every scenario or I think of everything.
You see his kid photos? He looks like a murderer. He dresses like a murderer. This man's a serial killer, probably.
Where do our identities come from? Are they the result of our upbringings, the personalities that manifest from the paths we choose to walk down, or are they chosen for us? Do we truly have a say in who we are and what we become? The American Psychological Association defines personality as the enduring characteristics and behavior that comprise a person's unique adjustment to life, including major traits, interests, drives, values, self-concept, abilities, and emotional patterns. But still, the question remains, where did they come from? How deep inside themselves does a person have to look to find the source of who they are? And what happens if, while looking inside, they find evil? Pure, unadulterated evil. Recently, these are the questions that permeate my mind when thinking of my friend, Brian M. Curiel. My name is Julius, and you're listening to Ignore This Podcast, Chapter 40, How Brian Became Death. This true crime podcast is brought to you by Tasteless, a new weight loss powder that'll make anything easier to swallow, and you won't taste a thing. On October 15th, 2001, Brian was born in a Bolivian hospital, weighing in at 3 pounds and 40 ounces. He was quiet after the cord was cut. He and his mother slept for 3 months after the ordeal. Self-induced comas that still to this day leave doctors confused and speculative. And though this alone is controversial and mysterious enough to consider, something stranger occurred. Brian wasn't the only one born that day in Bolivia. But we'll get to that. Soon after his birth, Brian was moved from Bolivia to Los Angeles, California. As a child, Brian lived a sheltered life. The only real father figure he had was God, and he would only be allowed to see friends if they went to the same church as his family. Sundays weren't only saved for prayer, but it was the only day of the week Brian was even allowed to invite other kids over. They were allowed only 15 minutes to play video games, followed by 3 hours of further prayer. Eventually, Brian's knees would bruise. At nights, when all in the religious house were asleep, Brian would act out scenes from the games and films he and his friends would like. He would master the dialogue and timing of the actors, fully embodying the characters as a whole. He would become someone else because deep down, he desperately wanted to be someone else. Every day for 15 years, Brian was homeschooled. He was tutored in the mathematics of Copernicus, Pythagoras, Kepler, Galileo, Newton, all men of science and, more importantly, Christianity. He memorized ancient passages from holy books, books like the Holy Quran, Sutras, Torah, Tao, Te Ching. But what really stuck with him was the Holy Bible.
Just as we fully obeyed Moses, so will obey you. Only may the Lord your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your word and does not obey it, whatever you may command them, will be put to death. Only be strong and courageous. Josh 1-12.
One of Brian's favorite verses. As he turned 16, Brian asked his family if he could attend public schooling. Knowing the harsh realities of the real world and concerned for Brian's safety, his family protested until they compromised. Brian was told he would attend Maranatha High School, a private Christian school in Pasadena, California. This is when Brian revealed a side to himself that no one had seen before. He snapped. Brian yelled, threw lamps against the walls of his home, poked holes in the tires of his car with a spork, and he damned his religion. Brian told his family for the first time ever that he wanted to be an actor, and he had already done his research on the best schools in the area to study. And after long, tireless debate, Brian ultimately won. He applied and was accepted to the Los Angeles County High School for the Arts. On his first day, Brian almost immediately felt out of his place. He walked into the school with a polite and excited demeanor, buttoned up in a suit, wearing a plaid bow tie, as if he were going to a family dinner. He would say hello to everyone who passed by. The other students were quiet, confused as to Brian's wear, and caught off guard by his friendliness. Brian was especially excited when approaching his female classmates. He'd never seen so many in person. It was intoxicating.
Well, when I was younger, my mom has definitely told me this and stuff like that, and she always worried about me because, I let a lot of people walk over me when I was a child and stuff because, I never really had a connection with people. So I gave up a lot of my self-interest or my self-possessions just to have someone say they like me for the moment. For the day.
Is that out of worry of some kind, like the worry of them leaving, or the worry of not being liked, or where does that come from?
Both.
A little bit of everything.
I think it's a little bit of everything in the sense of I never really felt connected with people, and I still sometimes don't anymore and stuff like that. Even now, I think I only really connect with people who are good people or honest people. I think honest people attract other honest people, and I think people who are not honest, or people who are not truthful, or people who are not good people, they'll attract those types of other people.
Brian was alone during his time at school. He made some friends, but the feeling never escaped him. The longing was tangible. For months he pretended to be happy-go-lucky, carefree, but I guess he never really achieved the connection or the intimacy he expected from the real world. So many of his attempts at reaching out to new people, his attempts at asking out friends, girls, teachers, they were met with rejection. This was when Brian decided to sway off from reality. This was when Brian met his best friend, Death. But who was Death? A classmate, a faculty member, a relative? I asked one of Brian's Loxa friends, Sebastian, about their time together. I asked what they would do, what they would talk about, and more importantly, who Death was.
Brian and I had a lot of fun in high school,
At Loxa.
At Loxa,
right.
Yes. I met him in the 10th grade, because I transferred in from another high school. He was just kind of there. He was like one of the first friends I made. So we did a lot of stuff together. We did some plays. We watched movies, played video games. We even did films like for contests and classes and all that.
Yeah.
What
for the contests? What kind of contest were they, like the 24-hour?
Yeah, so we had to make there's this specific one where we had to make a film with very specific criteria within 48 hours. And it was known for being so stressful but fun, that even the academic professors left no homework over that weekend. So that students could focus on making the film.
But still stressful.
Oh, yeah. Very, because no students would sleep for those 48 hours. But yeah.
Yeah, well, what side of Brian did you see during those times?
There was when we started filming, he was very chill, very calm, very easygoing. But
Did he
then-
act in them?
Yeah.
He acted in
Yeah,
them.
he
Okay.
acted in them. He acted in them. He also helped like as holding the boom or for some of them. Yeah. But then when it got like stressful or it got slow or like when like the clock was sticking or like when a take wasn't happening, he would get really stressed and would just like start like swearing under his breath or like his eye would start twitching. Everyone I guess just kind of assumed it was like the stress getting to him. No one really thought it was like anything crazy.
Anything that would be revealed later.
Sure.
Right. But aside from all that, aside from those stressful times and everything, you do care about him.
Oh yeah, a ton of course.
He's like a brother to you. And
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
And
We've been together through
a lot.
a lot.
And you guys specifically, and I've been there for some of these arguments, but you argue a lot about religion.
yeah, we kind of do.
Yeah.
I guess that's like the big thing we always argue about. For him, his like religion is so important, and like to me, it's like kind of like the opposite. So we're polar opposites.
Would you say it's a part of his personality?
His religion?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time. One time we even arm wrestled about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, who won?
Who do you think?
Oh my
Me
god.
and my massive guns, of course.
Oh man. Well, did you ever meet Death?
Yes. I know Death.
Well, who was Death?
Death was Brian.
Upon Brian's self-imposed high school exile, he created a character named Death, a character that he would become. The character of Death was around Brian's age, with a dark, nihilistic sense of humor. He'd make violent jokes towards classmates and even faculty. On one occasion, he referred to his performing arts instructor, Pablo Guskin, as a tuna. The other students in the classroom laughed until Brian elaborated on his point. He said loudly that Death's favorite meal was tuna sandwiches. The class quickly went silent, and Guskin would later call police due to fear. When asked by the Los Angeles Police Department why Brian would call his teacher this name, Brian simply replied, "It was near lunchtime, and Death was getting hungry." I asked a former classmate of Brian's, his name's Harrison, about this instance.
So Harrison, why don't you tell me a little bit about the time at Loxa taking classes with Brian, this instance at with the Professor Guskin?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking
Right.
about. The tuna sandwich?
Yes.
Right. Okay. When Brian told Guskin that one time that he wanted, what was it? He said he wanted to eat him as if he was a tuna sandwich.
sandwich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I thought there were a couple of things that could be going on.
Okay, what were you thinking?
I thought that maybe he was just joking because, I mean, come on.
Right.
It was Brian. This was a comedy class. We were doing improv. That was my first thought. The other things I were thinking was that it was, I mean, I guess Brian was maybe gay or closeted and he was trying to get with Guskin. He was trying to get comfortable with Guskin or, one of those two factors.
Yeah.
Or C, I thought that, I don't know, maybe this was one of Brian's weird religious shit going on.
Well, what do you mean by that? Like, what religious shit did you witness?
Well, dude, I legit thought that he was trying to be a youth pastor. Like,
Right.
putting art school aside, I thought that was his goal.
Right.
I mean, was he not? Is that what you're telling me? Is he not a youth pastor?
Well, I understand the confusion, and I understand why you would think that.
Well, dude, he just kept going around, and when he would call himself Death, he would quote these Bible verses like all the time with these Bible verses.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious regarding the atmosphere of the class from then on. Because you have this instance where Guskin is called a tuna sandwich, and Brian says he wants to eat him like a tuna sandwich and everything, and everyone is laughing at first, but then it becomes very serious.
There
and
was
dark.
there was a definitive, when it was initiated, haha comedy. That was the point of the class. We were doing an exercise and Brian would try something new, and we would all try things new, but from then on, like whenever it would be called back, we would there was something wrong there.
How did the class progress from then on? Like, did he show up?
Honestly, we tried to find distractions. People would bring their own new things and, business as usual. But whenever Brian would bring those similar themes back, it would get quiet.
Before that point, did he ever call any other classmates, like yourself or anyone else, like food items?
Not to my memory. It's possible I could have blocked it out, but really, that first time with Guskin was one of the more notable.
Right. He didn't call Joey, for example, a turkey sub or something. Not to your knowledge.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Did he? And what were the interactions? What were the interactions between both you guys, on your own, personally?
I mean, he was a year below me. I never had him in any of my classes beyond that one Friday one that mixed us together with the other comedy students. So I didn't really work one-on-one with him or chat one-on-one with him. We ran in different circles, but I don't know. Every time I saw him from then on, something seemed wrong.
There was a
twisted,
a little twisted vibe. Something.
I couldn't describe it.
Yeah. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just it's coming back to me, right. And some of these memories are ones that I didn't think I'd be bringing up again.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry. I need to go for now.
It's all right. Go for it.
Yeah, when Brian first introduced himself to me as Death, I kind of laughed. I thought he was in on the joke,
Well, what do you mean by that?
Oh, well, you know how the Bible is the most violent book?
Right.
All the descriptions kill your son to prove your faith in me, or
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah, or the whole...
The
plagues.
Yeah.
Oh, God, the plagues. Where you have to kill goats to save your firstborn, and every other little innocent child is just absolutely mangled.
Yeah.
And there's also the whole crusades and all of the violence
everything that followed.
Everything that followed, slavery in the U.S. So yeah, I thought he was in on the joke.
Joking.
Yeah, I thought he was joking. And when I laughed. I was like, okay, Death, Mr. Anime cringy kid. I am Death.
What did he do?
Well, he kind of just took it seriously. He kind of took offense to that, and I was like, oh, okay.
Did he storm off or anything?
No. He just kind of made a face, and he kind of scuffed, and I was like, I thought it was even funnier because it's
oh, he's going with it.
Yeah,
right?
he's going with it. He's going with it. He's playing the bit, and
that wasn't the case.
That wasn't the case. He actually took it very seriously, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, what happened after that?
Well, we all ended up finding out that death was no joke.
Brian would eventually graduate from high school. He went to Pasadena City College, where I met him, and by the age of 19, he was accepted to UCLA. He majored in religious studies. This was around the time when Death found his first victim. This podcast is brought to you by Ska-Wear-Space, the perfect website to find the perfect outfit for your next ska show. Ska-Wear-Space. That's www.ska_wear_space.com. The University of California, Los Angeles has one of the best freshman retention rates in the country. According to College Factual, 97% of students stay on for a second year, and 91.8% of undergraduate students finish within 6. And though these numbers are impressive, the stresses that follow these students is insurmountable. Within his first week at UCLA, Brian seriously considered transferring to the Delaware County Community College. He would flip burgers if it meant relief from the stresses found at UCLA. However, what kept him there was a threat on his life made by death. If he were to quit, death would take him to a cliff and sacrifice both personalities to their creators. They needed a way of relieving themselves of the stress. Right around this time was Sebastian's 22nd birthday party. I was in attendance and was part of the planning for that event, since it was a surprise party. All of us worked together. We ordered food, drinks, bought streamers, but something strange happened. We ordered a costume character for the party to surprise Sebastian with. Since immigrating to America, his favorite show was Barney the Dinosaur. So when this character didn't show up, we were confused. But when we looked to see that Brian at this time disappeared, we were concerned.
So, what did you think when Brian and the performer weren't there?
Well, I was a little stranged out. I don't know if that's a word, but I was just a little bit.
It was odd.
It was odd. It was
Right.
odd because I assumed Brian was the person who planned most of the event.
Yeah.
He knew the friends, he knew the family, so
And he knew the show you told him back in high school, the show you would watch.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. He knew the most about me. So
Yeah.
if there was anyone to plan for all of it, it was him. And
Yeah.
then when he didn't show up and there was no notice,
Mhm.
I was like,
And no
oh.
Barney.
And no Barney. Yeah, I was really disappointed. I really wanted to see Barney, and then neither Barney nor Brian were there. So it was kind of like,
Yeah.
I really, really wanted to see Barney.
Mhm.
When I got here to the U.S., it was the first show I saw.
Yeah. Did you learn? Because it was a kids show. Did
Yeah,
you learn
it helped
English?
me. It helped me with my English.
Right.
The whole
Singing,
you love me,
everything.
I love you.
Right.
I really wanted some of that love.
It's
And
special.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when I didn't see that purple dinosaur,
Mhm.
which I was expecting,
Yeah.
it was kind of
heartbreaking?
it was kind of sad and disappointing. And but then I was like, Brian sure to hire them.
Yeah.
Where are the two of them?
Mhm.
Before jumping to conclusions, we called the entertainment company and asked what happened to Barney. They told us that Barney checked in with them, saying that he appeared at the party and had a great time. We thought at this point that we were being scammed. That is until they sent us video surveillance footage of the performer, still in costume, entering their office. Except it wasn't Barney. It was Brian. The performer in the video was around 6'1", when we were told ahead of time that the actual Barney would be 5'3". Later that night, a police report was made public of a 5'3" German party performer, Hugo Glitz, going missing. My friends and I feared the worst. Was Brian involved in this disappearance? We tried calling him, but Brian wouldn't answer. We only got his voicemail. It wasn't a recording of his voice, but instead, it was this. That is when we called the police and reported Brian.
So, do you think Brian was involved in Hugo's disappearance?
I've thought about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Not Brian. Definitely not Brian. I think what Hugo saw that night was death.
Did you ever, since then, talk to Brian about this?
After we saw the camera footage and after the news came out, I kind of was a little bit scared, so I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
leave it alone,
So you didn't talk to him about this?
I didn't. I kind of hoped that it would
Just go away?
yeah, that it would just go away,
Right.
that there wasn't any connection. Maybe I was overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
I did ask him why he didn't show up, and he just like gave me some like lame excuse, like, oh yeah, sorry, I got sick last minute and couldn't like attend. But yeah.
Yeah. Brian was brought in by the LAPD and examined by a doctor from the USC Medical Center. Even though he went through hours of counseling and examination, the doctors didn't diagnose him with DID. A new term had to be created for Brian, BRI, otherwise known as Brian's Ridiculous Identity. I talked to a local nurse and friend of Brian's, Nurse Miles Mendoza, who works at USC, and asked his opinion on BRI.
Well, usually I work with transplant patients and everything like that, but as a nurse you have to be versatile in multiple different fields to understand how a person operates.
Now, speaking of people who have disorders, Brian, who has BRI. So can you, like, what are the things about BRI when it comes to Brian that are significant?
Now, BRI doesn't usually happen to every person named Brian. You know, it's a small.
Specifically
Brian.
Curiel,
Curiel, yeah. And it's just it was super rare that he even has this kind of disorder and everything like that, and it was just
a flamboyant yell.
Flamboyant yell. Excessive laughing.
Okay.
From jokes that are just kind of dark.
Right. When did you hear about Brian being diagnosed for BRI, which is Brian's Ridiculous Identity? When did you hear about that? Did Brian come up to you and tell you this? Did you hear it through the medical community? Because it's an outlier.
Yeah, it's a bit of an outlier. You know, it's like you never expect any. You always expect to learn new things about medicine and everything like that. Everything comes out new. There's new information that comes out, and when this one came around, it was like, oh man, it's to him specifically.
Right.
And it's just like you don't hear this happening to a specific person, and it's only kind of him for now.
If Brian were your patient and you knew you had to deal with BRI, Brian's Ridiculous Identity, what would you do to help him cope? Like, if you had him as a patient?
Well, I would first have to calm down his excessive yelling and everything like that, because we're not going to get anywhere if he
just yells.
Yeah, if he just yells sporadically. Also, to tone down on the laughing, try to calm him down, try not get as dark as he may want.
What about holistic medicine? Like, would that help at all?
Maybe.
Treatments?
Yeah, maybe, as you were suggesting, maybe like having a pet skunk and everything.
Right.
Like maybe with like some skunk spray or something like that, just to help him, breathe in and just kind of wake him up. Help him just kind of wake up. Phallic-shaped objects, cucumber, a pickle, baby carrot.
Right.
If he wants to go to a male strip club, he should.
That will help.
That might. Again, it's a new disorder, so we're gonna trying different avenues to see if that will work, and maybe this will work. We'll have to see if anyone else gets BRI, and if it does, we'll know that we've treated Brian as much as we can, so we can get enough information. So for the next person who has BRI, we can treat them appropriately as well.
An outlet for Brian's rage and religious trauma. And after that incident, after this revelation, Death lost his power. And we didn't hear from him. Until recently. This podcast is brought to you by Podass, a website for up-and-coming podcasters. Record your favorite pieces of locker room talk and upload them where they belong. Podass. On January 1st, 2023, I was awoken by a call. The previous night, I had been drinking, so the morning after I wasn't all there. But I sobered up pretty quickly because of this call from Brian. Or should I say, Death. Thankfully, the night previous, I passed out right next to my podcasting equipment, and I was able to record the phone call.
Brian, please calm down.
There was no Brian. There was only death. Death for all, death to all.
Brian, please. I thought we got past this.
No! We will never forget. They will pay. They will all pay. Starting with our home.
Brian, just...
No! There is no Brian. I am become death.
And then he hung up. Death had returned to Brian. But whenever I'd bring it up to him, he said he had no idea what I was talking about. And the strangest part is, I believed him. He was completely and utterly clueless. He had no memory of his alter ego, or the religious passages, or his history with the police. Anything. It was as if he were a completely different person. Death remained. I started to worry. So I called Sebastian and Jessica and, well, everyone. No one answered. All their numbers were disconnected. I was getting worried. So I called the police, and I was going to tell them everything, but the police wouldn't answer either. I started receiving notes in my mail, crudely drawn pictures as if a child had scribbled on paper, images of me, decapitated, accompanied by psalms, captioned with love from death. Yesterday, I tried one last time to call Brian, and unexpectedly, he answered.
Brian?
Jules?
Brian, what are these notes? What are you planning? And what happened to my friends?
There's no hope for this world, Julius. No hope for your friends. No hope for you. You'll all burn in holy fire. You'll see.
Brian, whatever it is I did, please, I'm sorry.
How many times do I have to tell you, Jules? There is no Brian anymore. I am become death.
And that was that. I don't know what happened to Brian. To us. I just know that if anyone hears this, you have to stop him. You have to stop Death. You have to stop Brian. Please. He will roll over the earth and destroy us all. No one is safe. No one... Brian? Brian? This podcast is brought to you by Podsmash, the first dating app specifically for podcasters. Podsmash. You'll want to turn off the mics for this one.